In this video, I'm going to show you the defect and reference integration between TestRail and GitHub. What exactly does it mean? It means you can push and add reference or defects directly from TestRail to GitHub. Let's start with the defect integration. I'm going to the administration area, then select Project, because I want to integrate with a single project. If you want to configure a global integration for your whole TestRail instance, just select Integration on the right side panel and follow the same steps. In the project area, choose the project where I need this integration, in this case, the GitHub integration project. Now, choose the Defect tab. At the top, you have the Defect View URL and the Defect Add URL fields. You want to add the URL using the following pattern. First, the GitHub address with HTTPS, then the owner of the repository, the name of the repository /issues /ID between %. In my GitHub repository, you can see I'm the owner. And this is the repository I've created for this integration purpose. So that's why my URL looks like this. For the Defect Add URL, you will follow the same pattern, but with the word new in place of ID. Now, choose the plugin. So in the dropdown, select GitHub, and you will immediately see the configuration details populated here. You will need to add an address, a user, and a password for the integration. I'm using api.github.com, but this depends on what kind of GitHub server you have. The user is your GitHub username, and for the password, you should generate an access token. In GitHub, navigate to Settings and then select the option Developer Settings. Then choose Personal Access Tokens, and finally, Tokens Classic. You can see I've already created the tokens here. But if you don't have any tokens, just click on Generate New Token and generate a new token classic. Here, you can add a note, choose the expiration date, and select the scope, wherever you want to use it. Then click on Generate Token. The last values you need to add are the owner, which is the same as the user, and finally, the name of the project you are integrating with. For this example, I've created the TestRail GitHub project integration, which is the repository where I want to integrate my results. So I just grabbed the name of the repository and added it to the configuration. Scrolling down, you can see the push and hover fields, which are the fields you see when pushing a defect directly from TestRail or hovering over a link defect to fetch real-time details from GitHub. You can set them on and off and even add custom fields. Once you've configured this, just save the project and the defect integration is done. Now, let's see how you can use the integration. In my GitHub integration project, I've created a regression test run. Imagine I'm executing a test case, for example, this one, log in with invalid credentials, and for some reason the test is failing. So I'm choosing the status as failed and adding a comment like why the test case is failing. Then, to create a corresponding defect in GitHub, just click on Push. This opens a form with the fields you configured in the integration. Change the summary to be more descriptive, like login with invalid credentials is successful, which is something we don't want. You can also choose the milestone, assign it to someone, choose the label, and provide more information about the bug. Then, click on Submit. Notice that the defect ID from GitHub appears automatically here. Let's just add the result, and you will see the link between this test and the bug in GitHub. If you hover over, you can view all the fields of this defect. If you click on it, it will redirect you to your GitHub project, where you can check the defect created from TestRail. You can also see it in the Issues tab. If you don't want to use the push function, you can also create the bug using the Add functionality. Clicking on it will direct you to GitHub, where you can include all the information you want. Let's say Gmail login is not working, and submit this as a bug. The only disadvantage here is that you have to enter the defect ID from GitHub and TestRail manually before submitting the result. Another important thing that comes with the integration is that you can view real-time status of the defect in GitHub without leaving TestRail. Just click on Defects here, and you will see all the bugs logged for this test run. If you hover over, you can see the details. And on the right, you can see the status. Now, these bugs are all open. This is something good to know. Let's move to the references integration. I'm navigating to Administration, then Projects, and selecting the GitHub integration project. But this time, I'm selecting the References tab. I'm going to insert the URLs first with exactly the same configuration used in the Defects tab. So first the GitHub address, then owner, project name, issues, and ID. And I'm doing the same for the add URL. For the plugin configuration, follow the same steps. Provide the address for your GitHub server, the username, and the password, which can be the same access token you've already generated. Then again, provide the owner and the name of the GitHub project you want to integrate with. You can also turn on and off the fields you want to see when adding or hovering a reference ID in TestRail. If you don't want some fields to appear, just write off and then click on Save Project. Now, let's see how the references work. References are links to requirements or user stories in an external system. For example, while editing this test case, you could directly provide references for GitHub issues or requirements. Here, in my GitHub issues, there's a certain kind of issue in the form of requirements user stories. The ID for the login requirements is 1, so I added the number 1 as reference in my test case. When you hover over, you can see the complete requirements of the user story there. That is something very useful when running the tests. You can get the complete user story from which the test case is deriving. And you can include multiple references to a test case. You only need to separate them with a comma. For example, I added 2 and 8 here. It means the issues or the requirements 2 and 8 are both referring to this test case. You can also see the references on your test case repository. Just click on the column configuration button and add the references column. Once you update the columns, the references are displayed. In this way, you can quickly view all the references for which your test cases are applicable. Besides test cases, it's possible to add references to test runs, plans, and milestones. Okay, the integration is done. Now, you can take advantage of TestRail reporting capabilities to check test coverage and generate traceability reports. For that, let's move to the report section. One report in which a lot of users are interested in is a traceability matrix report, where you can see that for a list of references, how many test cases have been created, and what are the requirements which are still not covered with the test cases. To generate the traceability report, click on the Comparison for References report. You can change the name and add a description, but the most important is that, under References, you select the following references only and insert all your issues IDs from GitHub, 1 per line. After that, navigate to Sections and Test Runs to choose the test runs you want to check. I'm going to include these 2 test runs and click OK. Then scroll down and click on Add Report. This report can take a few minutes to be generated, but I already have a Comparison for References report here to show you. At the top, you will see a chart with the test results for the run selected, as well as the combined results considering the latest submitted statuses. Scrolling down, you can find information on the runs, and further down, the results for all test cases. The issue IDs are here as references, and you can check for coverage gaps. In this case, Issue 1 has 1 test case associated with. Issue 2 has 2 test cases. Issue 3 has 1 test case. But Issues 4 and 5 have no test cases. So you might want to check if you forgot to add the references, or you need to create new tests to cover them. Another report which can be important is the coverage for references. Generating this report is very similar to the traceability report I just created, so I'm not going through that again, but I have an example here. This report will tell you what exactly is the coverage for the test cases, which you can immediately see in the chart. Out of 10 requirements, 4 are covered with test cases and 6 are not covered. Scrolling down, you can see the details, the list of references, and the test cases linked to each one of them. In this example, the references 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9 have no test cases associated with. And this report also gives me the test cases that have no references, giving you the information you need to act. So this is how you can integrate TestRail with GitHub to improve your processes. Hope it's useful.